But, Rob, let's get to another NBA series, and that, of course, is the Eastern Conference semifinal between Boston and Philadelphia that's knotted at 2 games apiece, thanks largely to James Harden, who, Rob, he has been much maligned, and rightly so. But, boy, did he step up yesterday in Game 4. They were on the verge of losing. He drops 45 points, 6 assists, hit the game-winning three-pointer, had 10 points in the fourth quarter when Embiid was being locked up. The MVP, Joel Embiid, was being locked up by Al Horford, and Boston was charging, and Harden kept them in it. And like you said, hit the game-winning three-pointer from the corner when Jaylen Brown just mistakenly left him alone to double-team Embiid, Rob. And so I give James Harden his props. We had been critical of him. The whole city of Philadelphia was being critical of him. Much of the NBA world was being critical of him for shooting 5 for 28 in games 2 and 3.
Right. He followed up that tremendous Game 1, a steal on the road, Chris. And It wasn't like people were expecting him to do a 42-piece again, but play well, right? Just play well, not.
Don't shoot 18% or whatever it was that he shot. Yeah, I'm with you. But I give him props. But here's the question I want to ask you, Rob. Do you think now, he's hit 2 game winners now in the last 4 games. Do you think now that his playoff woes are behind him?
It's too early. It really is, because you would have thought that after they stole Game 1 in Boston and he played big without Embiid, Chris. So I just can't, and I get it. If that shot misses, I don't think people are, obviously they'd be down 3-1 and people would look at it.
The L series would be over.
Right. You know what I mean? So he made the shot. We're not taking anything away from him. He played great. But I'm not convinced that he's on another track or he's shaking the past woes that he's had in the postseason and the bad games that sometimes show up for him. So no. If you're Philadelphia, you're hoping and praying. Can he continue this?
Right.
Can he make some more big shots? Can he do that, Chris? And let me just give you some how up and down, okay? Portland 45, right? To lead them to the win without Joel Embiid. Okay. Then in games 2 and 3, we told about 5 for 28. And that's the worst 2-game, Chris, shooting effort of his career.
Wow.
5 for 28. That's according to ESPN. The worst ever 2-game, okay? Then Harden made the 2 go-ahead field goals, Chris, in the last 30 seconds of the game, right? But coming into the series, he was just 1 for 10 in those moments. So before this, he was 1 for 10 in those big moments, the go-ahead, right, with less than 30 seconds to go. He only done it once, and he did it twice for Philadelphia. So did he shake it? I don't know if he shook it, but he's off to he's got to be you got to be encouraged if you're a Sixer fan. I'll say that.
Well, I'll say this, Rob. And I am with you that I cannot yet say, oh, Harden has shaken, the playoff bugaboo that's, haunted him throughout his playoff career. Because this is just the second round of the playoffs. We haven't gotten to the really big games yet. Obviously, you got to win these games to get to the big games. But, Rob, with his track record of struggles and with his standard, this is not a role player. This is not a sometimey all-star.
Right.
This is an all-time great. Rob, if he didn't have the playoff blunders he has, he would be ranked as high as anyone without a championship. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong, because his play was at a different level in those years in Houston. Chris, he was doing stuff that was unbelievable. And then he would get to
Absolutely.
the playoffs looking for fouls, flopping all over, missing big shots, and people would go like, what is this?
Turning the ball over left and right.
He looked like a different guy. And I know people are like, well, they're not calling the game the same way, and during the regular season, that would be a foul. This ain't the regular season.
Right, and that's true for everybody.
And you got to adjust.
You're not the only one that's true for.
Right, and he didn't adjust. And he had bad playoff performances. But if you're Philly, you got to be, Chris, you got to feel like maybe he's trending up. Like maybe.
Well, I think, look, I will say this. I'm more optimistic about him than I have been, when this series started. I'll tell you that. But, Rob, here's the thing with Harden. It's not like his playoff reputation is because he's never had big playoff games. Oh, he got several 40 pieces.
Right.
He got a ton of 30-point games. But he's also had a lot of clunkers. He's also had a lot of games with high turnovers, 10 turnovers, 12 turnovers. Games where he didn't shoot very much. Forget making them, just didn't take a lot of shots. And that's what people wonder about with Harden. So I agree. If like I said, I am believing more in James Harden now than I was 2 weeks ago. But I've got to see more before I say, okay, he's conquered whatever
demons he had.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. And he obviously took the big shots. Embiid was struggling, Rob. And so I give him props, but it's 2-2. And I still, Rob, think this. I do think Boston's a better team.
But that's a bad loss there, Chris.
It's a bad loss.
That's a bad loss. Right.
They've given away, and I don't want to take anything away from Philly, because Philly is talented.
Yeah, but down the stretch of that game, how did they lose that game?
Well, Boston, the thing is, under Joe Mazzulla, I'm not going to kill him like a lot of people have been, but they are, Rob, under Brad Stevens and Ime Udoka, their play down the stretch of playoff games in particular was one of their strengths. And now they're kind of shaky down the stretch. Now, yesterday, Mazzulla's getting killed because he didn't call a timeout. They had 19 seconds left. They're down 1, and they drive, was it down 1 or 2? But they instead of calling a timeout, Mazzulla lets them play, which we see coaches do.
Some of them don't, but they don't want the other team to set up. You know what I mean?
Right.
I get it.
Philly
I
plays
do. Right.
Good defense.
So you don't want them to set up. You push it and just get no timeout. I get it.
Here's the one thing I'll say, because I'm fine with, as you explained, I'm fine with the strategy. And they came within a whisker of actually getting a good shot and a shot that would have won the game. But when you saw how slowly they were walking the ball up, when you saw how long Jason Tatum was taking to get into the offense.
No sense of urgency. Where's the urgency? Where's the urgency?
And they obviously didn't get a shot off. Marcus Smart's three-point shot was right after the buzzer sounded, so they didn't even get a shot off. But, Rob, you're down 1. What you're supposed to do in that situation is take the shot with 5 or so seconds left, so you might get an offensive rebound, or if they get the rebound, you can foul them and extend the game.
And extend the game. You can't wait till the last second, because if it's no good, you have no other opportunity.
Right.
100%. You got to leave some time on the clock. You can't wait.
And you could see they were going like, okay, we taking the last shot. And I think that's when you probably have to call a timeout. Again, I get it. I'm not going to roast them, but that, like you said, that's a tough loss because they gave that game away. They gave away game 1 because I think
no
they just
Embiid,
took them,
they did.
Right, they took them lightly.
Chris, this thing could be over. Let's just be honest. Let's be honest.
Yep.
And if Philadelphia comes back and wins this will be a tough pill to swallow for Boston.
Whew. And they already gave, and again, I'm not saying Mazzulla's horrible, but they already gave him the contract extension, Rob.
Right. I get it. I mean, they played well and everything, but this is where you start to look at coaching, Chris, a little closer. Timeouts, the way you deal with people. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this, and this is where people get to dissect you a little bit more than regular season games.
Yep, absolutely. And so, it's become, Rob, I got to say this, and I know we've talked about the injuries in the playoffs, but man, these playoffs have still been great. It would have been better, obviously, with Kawhi and Paul George and Giannis being fully healthy and all that. But, man, the series are really good.
It's funny because some of them look like they were going to be no series, and then some games turned around. Do you know what I mean? Like the Suns series. I thought that series was over. I did,
too. It'll be interesting to see if they can even, if they play close in Phoenix or in Denver.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But one thing
I'll disagree. I get it. Eddie Johnson played. I didn't play in the NBA and all that. But minutes do pile up, Chris, and I see guys get tired in the NBA.
I think that the Lakers, Anthony Davis and LeBron, are tired. We like you said, we didn't play. I played in college.
Right, I didn't play. I'm not sitting here.
It's hard to say. I kind of think there's a balance, Rob. I do think sometimes the media, just like we do or doctors do with load management, right? I think sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, he's playing, 43 minutes a night. Rob, there was a time when 39, 40, 41, 42 minutes was commonplace among the stars, and Eddie played in that time because Eddie came off the bench for the most part,
right?
But he still was in the 30-minute, and even more, like he said, at his prime, apex, he was playing, 35, 36 minutes a game. And I will say this, Rob, I think you can pace yourself. You know what I mean? Like LeBron's clearly pacing himself.
Yeah, and for a reason. Right.
But Jordan, Rob, I'm just looking now. He averaged 40 or more minutes or more than 40 minutes 3 straight years.
Right.
Early in his career.
I'm just saying,
make too big of a deal, but I hear you.
Only because their bench is
and that's
what I'm saying.
Monty he trusted the bench more,
and they got
have to keep doing that.
They got the 40 points, and it helped big time, and that's why they won. But Chris, and the bench usually plays better at home. When they go on the road, let's see how that
that's true.
And whether or not what they do on the road, and whether or not you're going to give them that freedom and those minutes. You know what I mean? You might load up KD and you might load up Booker.